Hello, I'm not Yeti, and this is me doing another tournament report. I'm basically going to go through everything that happened for me at the Man in the Moon Summer Showdown. I played in the New Year's Showdown or whatever that was called, and that was really fun. So I decided to do this one as well. I was playing with a bunch of my teammates from EA Sports, and I'm just going to go through basically what I was thinking going into the tournament, all of the rounds that I played in, and how it went and how everything went for me. So, yeah, the two decks that I was playing, I was playing Ashniko, and I was playing a kind of Pigeon Fighter R plus. So, to talk about the Ashniko deck, Ashniko's Hashiko deck that I built with Cobra Bubbles and some of the other EA Sports people. Davs131, I think, gave a lot of good input early on. And yeah, it's like value Hashiko. Jai has played it to success in quite a few tournaments. Cobra Bubbles came third in the first fly to EMEA with it. And it's the deck that you're most likely to hear people griping about at the moment. But yeah, so it's all cards that only one card from the new set, Ashen Epilogue, and a bunch of value, and we are able to recover all of our pieces. So yeah, it basically is trying to be the best deck possible. And up until this point, other people had had really good tournament success with it, but I had not. So I posted the original list for it in the EA Sports Discord, but I was really struggling to win games with it. I only won one game at the original Fly to EMEA, and I took it to the Cambridge CO, which I did the other video about, and it won three of its four games there, and the one that I lost, I think was a bit of a throw on my part. But like my corp deck fell over in that tournament, so I didn't have a good record. But I'd done loads of practice. I just uh, loved it so much, gave up playing any other runner decks, and just really wanted to like focus in my skill and get to it. We'd been kind of inspired by um, Kira's Mori deck. That was like the starting point for me, and I started playing that near the end of the last meta. And was really kind of still learning the archetype when we built this. And so I'd gone away and kind of done as much practice as I could and tried to get really good at it. So I'd played loads and loads of games. I'd probably played 70 or 80 games with Ashniko by the point that we get to this tournament. Whereas my whereas my Corp deck, which is kind of a pigeon fighter deck, which is the deck that Extract won UK Nationals with in 2022, which was like my first major tournament that I ever went to. And so after that tournament, I played uh, Pigeon Fighter 3 a lot, and just like loved it. And it's doing, is trying to score out. It's play Seamless Launch, which is like my favorite corp card. But you get to do a lot of rude economic denial stuff, and you just got this like really lovely agenda suite, and it's 19 points worth of agendas because we're playing three copies of Bologna, which is just totally worth it. Bologna was fantastic, and the ban list is like, I think like it's a fairly justifiable hit. But the tournament that we were playing, the Summer Showdown, was the day after the ban list got announced, but before the ban list had come into effect. So this was kind of like a goodbye to it. I built this version of Pigeon Fighter the day before the tournament, um, and it was really partly it was me wanting to say goodbye to like this archetype that I don't know if it will survive past the ban list. Um, and it was like partly the rest of EA Sports devs had a lot of success with the asset spammer plus 45 and 49 44 and 49 card versions. Um, and I've played similar decks before. I could play that, but I'm not as good. And I hadn't put the practice in. And I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to go in and like let the deck down. So I built this Pigeon Fighter inspired deck, and I played exactly one test game with it. Um, I just did a JNet casual. I queued up against Source, who's a UK player who I know quite well. And I played one game against him on Ashniko, or like a version of Ashniko. Um, that like I shouldn't have won, but I did. Like the economic denial stuff's just great, right? Like if they make the wrong run, it can really punish them, and that's basically what happened. He made a couple of mistakes that cost him the game, and I kind of knew like that was part of the appeal of this deck, right? Is that your opponent can lose the game really quickly, um, and so I thought, fine, we'll play this today. So submit my deck list, and getting ready for the tournament. Um, so yeah, it was on a Saturday, and like I'd booked into playing it a while ago. A while before, my partner had said to me, like the day before the tournament, "Hey, remember we've got cinema tickets tomorrow? We were supposed to go to the cinema, and so I managed to double book myself. Um, so I was missing out on that, and I almost thought about canceling playing in the tournament and just like going and spending time. Uh, but I didn't. I decided I'd already invited people around, and that was one of the really fun things was that uh, the Norwich meta for these like big online tournaments. We've kind of like made it a bit of a tradition of like getting together for them, doing them all in person, which I think makes them a lot more fun. So I had Ashbo, Frieden, and Kami round. I took yeah, my partner's table from upstairs and put it in here, and then crammed the four of us into my office, which is like not uncomfortable, but probably at capacity. Um, and so like I made some food for everybody, and we got snacks, and we like got set up, and we were just kind of chatting and like talking it through. And so we go to the player meet, and they do like the table pairings, and then it's time for round one. And round one, I get paired up against Kami, one of the 71 other players in the tournament, one of the three other people in the room with me. Um, and yeah, we get paired up. It looks like there's going to be a repair for a minute, but there isn't. We play out round one as is. So, um, yeah, he's on World Tree Arasana, which is a scary deck. He is very good at the World Tree Arasana, and I've played against it quite a lot. I played against it on various different archetypes, and it like I find Arasana um, like quite difficult to play against because of her ability to like produce things from nowhere. And the World Tree deck I think is like extra good at producing stuff from nowhere and having answers to all of your questions. It takes like a huge amount of skill. When I play that deck, it doesn't feel like you've got answers to everything, but yeah. So I know his list, and I know what I'm up against, and I also know that Kami tilts into R plus, uh, which is an unfortunate like fact for his round one pairing, but I do know that like he's a very good player who does not like playing against R plus. And yeah, he especially does not like self growth, and I think like fair play with that list. And he doesn't know what I'm running. I've posted my deck. No, I don't even think I posted the deck list. I think I literally just like no, I know I did post the deck list. I posted the deck list that morning, so he could have had a look, but I don't think he would have. And like questions like, "Am I on public trail?" That sort of thing, I think would be difficult. But I think he knew the shape of the R plus that I was on. Um, so yeah, we get off to a pretty like normal start. Ice Rashida. He gets World Tree turn one. He always gets World Tree turn one. Um, and he uses Trick Shot to get into uh, R&D. So the first turn of the game, he does a Trick Shot run. He Arasana's out in SMC. No, out. Aristona's out of Muse. Muses for the SMC. SMC's for the World Tree. World Tree run completes, and he sells the Muse, which now doesn't host anything on it, for a Coalescence, and clicks the Coalescence twice. Um, and that's our first judge call of the tournament. Um, because I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to click the Coalescence until after the run ends. There's no window from declaring a successful run to the end of the run where you're allowed to use uh, paid abilities. So we call the judge like 2 minutes into the tournament having started. So I'm pretty sure like Man on the Moon was still running around trying to make sure tables got set up correctly. But we get there. And he comes and he agrees with my ruling, which is good because there is a Bologna on the top of the deck. So I managed to draw my Bologna. Uh, and from there I'm able to score it out on like turn 3 or 4. Um, I'm able to ice centrals as well. I ice all of my centrals, which is really important against the World Tree Arasana. And uh, yeah, Kami Kami is scared of my unrest ice. There's like a lot of stuff that will like give him a tag. And like if the game plan of your deck is to make a value run and convert your installed cards into other installed cards for like profit, taking a 2 credit and a click uh like hit on that is really big. So he's not getting full value out of his deck, and he's not installing resources from hand. Um, and I'm able to score out the Bologna first, which is great. You always want to score the 5-3 first, and then I get a artificial crypto crash as my second score, which just like steals his money. We talked about it afterwards, and he basically said that he thought that he was making more runs than he needed to. Like he was scared of my ice, but he was doing stuff to try and interact. When what he probably should have been is like digging for daily cast and installing it, which I don't disagree with. Uh, and so yeah, eventually we score out on like turn 9 or 10. Very classic pitcher fighter. It's feeling really good. Um, yeah, and so we go on to round 2, uh, where I get paired against Ashbo of the 71 other players in the tournament. In the first 2 rounds, I got paired against 2 of the 3 people that I'm in the same room as. And to top it all off, Kami Kami and Frieden, the other 2 people in the room, are also paired up against each other. So, yeah, literally, what are the odds? We should have brought our paper decks and played them out, but we didn't have them with us. So I'm sat here. Ashbro's sat like there and is playing the PE game against me, and I'm like laser focused in over on this screen. I don't want to look around and see that he's got snare in hand or whatever. So I'm sat here. But he's playing Tempo PE, which I've played against his Tempo PE once with my Ashnika deck. So we've played this matchup before, and I won that game, and it didn't feel too tough. Um, Once you kind of know what the PE deck's doing, I think like I basically knew that he was on the Tempo PE list with added snare, which is like a good thing to do. But so I know to play around the snare, but I also know that for the most part it's very light on traps, and I can probably afford to go for everything. So yeah, we're just challenging as much as we can. He's doing asset spam, and there is a one iced remote which has something behind it. It's been sat there for a little while. Um, Eventually, I get myself into a position where uh, I raindrops that server. He's got 2 ice in his deck. I think it's Botto and an enemy. So if this is a Botto, I think it's fine for me to access. Um, and if it's an anemone, I think I need to check out. It's an enemy. He trashes a card from hand because he didn't really have like much of a choice about, so I was feeling good. Um, and then I think about it and I jack out because if it's Sting or Fuji, it's kind of sad. Like I could end up ending my turn on 3 cards in hand, which is definitely not safe. So my thought process is we jack out, we draw up. On a future turn, it's really easy for us to go back in and get that. Even if we take 1 damage on the way in, and 4, like we can draw back up to 5 at the end of turn. Hashiko draw is huge in the PE matchup. Um, and yeah, like our cards are just hit points. So oh yeah, I get Miss Bones on turn 1, which is great for dealing with cohorts and reaper functions and all of that stuff. And there's one turn where he does set up a 6 damage turn. A combination of reaper function and scoring out a sting and having a blood in the water on the table. He sets up a 6 damage turn, but I had Steel Skin in hand, so he needed to do 7 damage to kill me. So once that fired off, like he did the 5 damage and hit the Steel Skin, and the only way he can kill me on that board state is if there's a blood in the water on the table. So I know that there's a blood in the water on the table, and he doesn't score it because he can't. So I know that there's 2 points on the table that I can go get for free. Most of the other servers have now been like emptied, so I grab those 2 points and I win the game. We've played that matchup like 3 more times now, and I think Ashiko wins like 90% of the time if you know what you're doing. So yeah, those are rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, I get paired up against Source, the one person who has played against my R+. So, despite the fact that this is like an international tournament where I'm pretty sure a majority of the players are not from the UK, after round 3, I'm just playing against my mates. I might as well have gone to Pop Runner at this point. But he's not playing Ash Nico now. He is playing Mulch Lou. I think I think it's Audrey, Mulch, Buffer Drive situation. And Mulch is the worst matchup for Pigeon Fighter. I think the reason why we stopped playing Pigeon Fighter in the first place was because them imping your Bologna is really bad. And it can lose you the game on the spot, basically. So, how I took that into account when I built the deck, basically all of the ice is teched for that matchup. So we're on Wraparound, we're on Hammer, VSA, and all of the stuff that essentially is, and we've got Ember Virus. So all of the stuff that I can put in there to help the matchup is in there, and that turns out to be a fantastic decision. He's discarding 3 cards from hand, 4 cards from hand to get through. No, 3 cards from hand to get through wraparounds, and then having to deal with Mester Chesfo. The economic denial, like that deck runs really poor, but the bit of economic denial that I am doing is just enough to ruin it. He does a fantastic job of recurring fermenters in the early turns, so I'm like really worried early on that essentially he's about to walk all over me because he's going to get his credits up. He's going to be able to do anything. The economic pressure that I put on isn't going to matter. But yeah, it costs him way too much money to break everything. It costs him way too many cards to break all of my things. And so there are 2 pivotal turns. He hits a hammer at one point, which is great. And then he hits. There's a turn where he's making a run. He hits a Starlit Knight. He's got Audrey counters, but I purge. So he takes 2 tags last click, and I'm able to double self-growth program him in 1 turn. And he goes from having Buzzsaw, Audrey, Cookbook, and Knobcree on the table to having an empty imp on the table. And that was the turn I won that game. And that felt great. So like that was mission accomplished for the deck essentially, was like, can we play into the mulch matchup? Turns out we can. So I was really happy. Happy with my deck building choices. And like the untested deck is now 2-0. Um, whereas when I went to Cambridge with my untested sports metal deck, that went 0-4. So I was taking a big risk. But yeah, we're feeling good. So round four, I play against Koga on PD. And just before round four starts, Ashbo turns to me and he goes, Ashniko is so good against PD, it feels like you're bullying them. It's easy mode. And then I get paired up against Koga on PD, and Koga is a very good player. And I don't necessarily agree. I think actually PD is like uh not by any means an auto win. I don't think like I would still probably say it's runner favored, but I think I could argue myself into saying that Ash Nico is favored into every single corp. Um, so yeah, I play against Koga, who is a tiebreaker. Um, and at that Cambridge tournament, uh, Jonald, who is a tiebreaker and a friend, when uh, we were in the pub afterwards, and he came second overall. And EA Sports, we were pretty down about the Cambridge tournament because that's like our home turf, and we did really badly. And we go for a meal afterwards, um, and I say to John Old, by the way, I'm like, uh, he's like, Jai's been really nice to EA Sports. Jai did like two write-ups where he credited us for the deck list and was really good and really sweet about us. We're good friends with like half of them. And I was like, Donald, we need to have a rivalry. It needs to be more, much less like friendly. Um, from my understanding, I don't know like the details, but from my understanding, tiebreakers recently like absorbed a lot of unbanned players. Um, and one of our players, Kikai, was an unbound player as well. And so they have really like strong friendships and relationships there. And they used to doing a lot of deck building together. And I was like, we're getting far too close to being one massive testing team. um, with free exchange of ideas between us. Let's create a little bit of friction. And he did. He posted like a really good write up, like dunking on EA Sports, which I thought was really fun. Um, and so in this tournament, we're keeping track of how many tiebreakers we can take down. So I'm up against Koga, who I know is very good. And it strikes me that he gets like a pretty uh, sick PD draw. Like he's just playing PD exactly the right way to play it against this kind of deck, which is agendas go from R&D into the remote server, and the remote server has 3 ice on it, and he's scoring out. And I turn the tide just fast enough, like just get over the line to lock the game. Um, yeah, because like once we put the rig, I'm playing Ice Carver in Ashniko, um, which is like a fantastic card. It just means that like Turbine plus Ice Carver invalidates pretty much every ice in the format. If you're playing against Asmari and you have to worry about Hydra, you can install a second echelon, and basically everything is like cheap. So yeah, I like just managed to get over. It's a really impressive PD game. I think exactly what you want to, how you want to play it. Just like slightly unfortunate. I think if you'd got slightly different ordering of the agendas, maybe I might have been. I might have just lost and scored 0 points, basically. So, but yeah. Moore was fantastic in that game. Moore was fantastic across the whole tournament, um, but especially against PD, it does really good work. Um, so yeah, after round four, we have a break. We eat some dinner. My girlfriend goes off to the cinema, and then I play round five against off 15-15, who like uh, I can't remember if in the first fight to EMEA tournament, I played against that prison morph deck, and it scared me very much. So I'm kind of a little bit scared going into this game against off 15. And they're playing Crew Hashiko. Um, and basically, yeah, turn one or two installs Hannah. And I think that their read was that I'm playing uh, assets R plus, which is a very sensible read to make. Most people are playing assets R plus, and nobody's been playing this Pigeon Fight deck in a really long time, which is like half of the reason why I want to play it is because it just feels like it's one of those unexpected calls that will catch people out. Um, and yeah, turn one they steal 2 points off of R&D, and I kind of like roll my eyes and I'm like, I'm about to get beaten up here. But then they install Hannah, and Hannah was like the best card in the matchup for me. Like I think Hannah won me the game because twice off 15 Hannah ran the remote, and because my ice suite is so good into mulch, there were two unsuccessful runs, which got me my money back or card draw, or just opened up scoring windows and opportunities for me to punish. Um, and like if they were normal runs, they would have cost, but they wouldn't have been as punishing. But they ended up being really like bad for off 15, I think. And so yeah, at this point I'm feeling great. We're undefeated after round five. Which is like probably like one of my best tournament performances in a while. Um, and yeah, like I'm feeling good about my R plus deck building choices. Ash Nico is fantastic. Um, I'm playing against good players and winning. That doesn't always happen. um, and yeah, so going to round six, and I get paired up against Encoder on R plus. So I'm making the same read that off 15 just made. I think Encoder is on uh, Asset Spam R plus. Turns out that's not the case. Encoder and I are on quite similar lists, except his influence isn't on Seamless Launch. His is on Audacity, and he's playing the Hollow Man. But we're scoring on a remote server, and I would not have called that. Um, but there's a repair, so I'm very grateful that there was a repair because I think I would have lost that game. Um, Although maybe being the only other person in the tournament running a similar game plan, maybe I would have clocked it. Who knows? Um, but yeah, so I get repaired to playing against Sticks on Asa, and it looks like they have a really tough opening draw. I'm able to get twinning down quite early, and they're kind of turning and spinning their wheels, and then eventually I like run HQ and steal 4 points, and then like the next turn I run R&D and steal the Luminol and I'm on 6 points, and I'm basically feeling really good. They're not doing anything, um, and then it all starts going wrong. There's this one turn where they push in a remote. They don't have a lot of money, and they've got Tributary Rest. So I think to myself, they've got 3 ice on this remote server that they can only afford to. There's like one res piece of ice, so now I can break it for one, and then they've got one. They've got 2 unres piece of ice. So I think they can only res one. They can only res one of them. So I'll bankar that server, but I don't want Tributary to eat my bankar run. So I'm going to run R&D first click, which is where Tributary is, and I'll twinning access to find some agendas. I'll try and just close the game off. Won't matter. But we're going to bankar the remote, run R&D, run the remote. That's the plan. So I bank R&D and run R&D, and then I realize what I've done. I click let Unbroken Subroutines fire, and then go, wait a minute, what have I just done? I now can't afford to get into the remote server and can't risk allowing those reses. So I like totally throw. I think if I'd done my other plan, I win the game that turn. But instead, Stick scores an off-world, and then like next turn plays fully operational and is back in the game, and there's a server I can't afford to get into, and I'm like clicking for credits, trying to make some money, but also trying to get these like value accesses, and Tributary is still Tributary, even if it costs me 1 credit to break. Um, and scores to 4, jams Ikra in the remote, double advances it. And I'm doing the maths. And like 4 turns ago, I was winning this game. And now I'm about to lose because I can't get into that server. So I just like run centrals. And I steal 2 points and I win the game. But like, that was one of those ones where like total dread set in and I was totally like blind panic. I'm about to lose this. I'm about to throw this game. Um, but we win. End of round 6, undefeated. Take a look at the leaderboards. I am top of the standings, and the only other person who is on an undefeated record is Kikai, teammate of mine. And I start doing the maths, and I'm like, I think we can ID. So I get on a Discord call with him, and he says, he's like dead silent. And I'm like, I think we can ID. He's like, I think we can ID, but I'm not gonna ask you for an ID. You have to ask me for an ID. Because at UK Nats last year, final round, I was paired up against Ollie, who's another EA Sports player, and we ID'd. We did the maths. We were both going to make it into the cut. And then, as the final round started going, we realized that I wasn't going to make the cut. I was going to come 17th. If one of our teammates won his game, if Cobra Bowls won his game, I would come 17th. And that happened. And I missed the cut on IDing. Now I would have had to have swept Ollie, which wasn't going to happen. So I was out the cut anyway. But I know that Ben especially, but a lot of people felt bad about that. So I could tell he wasn't excited to be IDing with me at this point. But we ID, and then I ID round 8, and at the end of all of that, I'm still top of Swiss, which is wild to me because I've never made a cut before. I've probably played in like 20 Netrunner tournaments at this point, and some of those were like small, and I don't make cuts. I like get very close and then bubble, but this is my first ever cut, so I'm like overjoyed. And I spend like an hour and a half just like doing the washing up, listening to some music, pottering around, trying not to be like incredibly anxious about all of this. And it's like midnight as well, um, because it's an American tournament and we're in the UK. So yeah, I start like getting ready. Everybody else finishes their round 8 and leaves. I think Freedan, Kami Kami, and Ashbo all went like 5 and 3, um, and they all go home. And my girlfriend goes to bed, and I start playing the cup. And I'm top seed, so I get to pick the side for my first cut game. And I'm up against Fire RL, which I think if you, I don't know, who was ninth in Swiss, and who got in because Encoder dropped. Um, and I look, and they've got 2 decks. They've got Ag Infusion, which has gone 2 and 2, and they've got Lou, which has gone 4 and 0. But I've played against Crew Hashiko and Mulch Lu in this tournament, and those games felt brilliant for R plus because of my incredibly intelligent ice choices. I've actually got a favored matchup into Lu, is what I'm telling myself because I'm totally deluded. And we sit down and we play the game, and it's rough. It's really rough. Notably, they're not on Audrey or Crew. They're on Chisel Charm, uh, which ends up being a massive difference maker because with Cookbook, Chisel Charm can eat wraparound and doesn't give you a tag for doing so, which ends up being like the difference maker, I think, in the matchup. Um, and we're playing, and they're eating my ice. And I tend to feel against any deck that's running Devil Charm that the big difference maker is, or like the way that every game goes, is that they come out of the gates incredibly hot. They've got all of their tools, they're just tearing you apart. Um, and like my ice is getting trashed and they're cycling fermenters and um but the thing that like you always have to do in those games is they can only devil charm 3 times, so you have to survive that and then win the game. um so that's what I'm doing, and I get to 5 points, and they are able to get all of the ice off HQ, and I'm holding agendas and they're imping stuff. And I eventually fire off a Rashida, but don't draw any ice. And I've got a Spin Doctor, I've got a Seamless Launch, and I've got a 2-pointer. Got 3 ice on the remote server, no ice on HQ, 1 unresed ice on R&D. They're on 5 points. So I'm looking at the board. I'm thinking to myself, I've got a couple other cards in HQ as well. They're like, there's padding. I think to myself, like, I just need to push the agenda. If I can push the agenda, that's fine. And what I should do is I should install the Spin Doctor to give myself hand padding so they are less likely to imp the Seamless. And if they do, I can like recur 2 Seamless and try and top deck the win. So I install my agenda in the remote server, I install my Spin Doctor outside, and then I go, what am I going to do for my third click? And I'm sitting there for like a while thinking about it because I hadn't thought this far ahead. All I know is that I've got to do it, and I'm just like thinking and thinking. And I go, oh, silly me. I can advance the agenda in the remote server because that way, even if they get rid of the Seamless, I've won the game. But like my original intention was that like they don't know what I've just put into the remote server. There's like a reasonable number of bluffs, and it costs them lots of resources to get in there. So by advancing it, I totally telegraph that that's the winning agenda. And they've got 5 Audrey counters. They can get in. Like it costs them everything to get into the remote server, but if they get in, they win the game. And if I hadn't advanced it, I probably would have won. But I didn't. I lost. They ran it, gave me the whole hand, took all their Audrey counters. They win the game. So there's no guarantee that I would have won that game if I hadn't advanced. They might have run. They might have read. That's an agenda. They might have run elsewhere, won the game. But they didn't. But I didn't. They won. And so that was the end of the first cut game. So I go down to the losers bracket. I get paired up against WoW Warlock, who is another tiebreaker. And I get the deck list up. 74 card Ob. We're playing Rococo with Cerebral Imaging, and we're playing we're also playing Mutually Assured Destruction, Kill Package, everything's in it. And so I'm just looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's half 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I do not want to be playing against this right now, but we'll go for it. We'll see. And like, I don't remember a huge amount of that game. It was on stream, and I got messages from Ashbo and Davs who both lost to it in Swiss, being like, "Get revenge. You gotta get revenge for EA Sports." Uh, um, so I'm like tired. There's a lot of pressure, and I think I play like a fairly sloppy game. But I know that basically there are a few principles. It's got two win conditions: combo out in the remote and end of the line to kill. So we can test the remote and we maul the end of the lines out of hand. That's how we win the game. It's 74 cards, so getting the end of the line kill is fairly like gonna be fairly tough. Um, to get both cards in hand and to be able to do it is going to be very difficult. So instead of doing that, we're just going to play our game plan, and we end up at a certain point. They start advancing clearinghouse in the remote, and I have to trash it, and I have to take the tags. And I think at that point, like all of the remote threats are out now. I'd got the one-offs of like every search ball by really lucky accesses, and I should know that I'm never contesting the remote again. And so instead of just trashing the clearinghouse, I also trash the upgrades, which is I can't remember what it's called, the one that gives you tags whenever you trash something from that server, and there are two of them. So I ended up taking 6 tags when I needed to take two. Um, and I looked down and I'm like, okay, well, I've got a bunch of trashables, and they're trying to win the game with a combo kill. So I think like they don't trash all of my stuff, and I take like that's my read is that they're not gonna spend the time to trash all of my stuff because I have a lot of resources. Like, and I thought maybe they'd take one out. I thought maybe Steve or the twinning, but no, none of it. Um, so I end up just make sure I get more value, make sure I get accesses, win the game. They were flooded on agendas in HQ that I didn't see, but I would have gone for the turn after I won. And I think we moored some ends of the lines in there. So we got revenge. We won a game in the cut, which was also like on the bucket list of things to do. Like making a cut. That's something that I've always wanted to do. Win a game in the cut. That was like goal two. And we hit that as well. So that's fantastic. Um, and the third game, I play against somebody whose name I don't know how to pronounce. I think they might be Alec J, or it might be a silent J. They might just be Alec. Um, and it's like 1:30, 1 in the morning, and I just don't read their deck list. I don't know why. I've not played in a cup before. I've not played open deck list before, and so I think it's just all like a bit much for me at this point. My my brain is failing me. And I sit down against Ob, and I'm like, I wonder what kind of ob this is, and I'm doing all the stuff in my head to try and narrow down what kind of ob I think they're playing, when I could have looked at their entire list. But I get a really clunky Ash Nico draw. It's like my first bad draw of the day. And like bad Ash Nico draw is fine. It's just like you're gonna get fully set up on turn 7 rather than turn 5. Um, and yeah, I it's actually like old school rush up from last map. Like it's not Fantastic Man. Uh, it's got hostile takeovers and Oak Towns in it. And they're scoring out in the remote server, and they before I know what's happened, the game is over. They have won. They have just like turned agendas from R&D and stuck them straight in the remote and won. I watched the replay of that game. I got like a little unlucky on accesses. Like I didn't touch a single agenda, and if I'd like touched one of those in the middle, like I was making runs on R&D, And if I'd like stolen one of those, it would have like disrupted their flow basically so much. Because if they have to take a turn off to draw cards to find the agenda, it makes a huge difference to me in terms of winning that game. And also, I had all of the material to get into the remote server, um, but I didn't want to because I had Steve Cambridge in hand. Not Steve Cambridge, DJ Fenris in hand. And I was like, we have to install DJ. That's one of the maxims of the deck, and that's just not true. Like, I could have in this matchup lost that and still won the game. I've got enough recursion from other ways, and if we even get to the end of the deck in like the rush odd match, we've probably won. Like, so we lose. And I'm out of the cup, but I'm very happy. I'm about as happy as can be for having just played like 10 hours of Netrunner. Um, and yeah, I lose out of the cup, but I just was happy to have made that far. Felt really good, felt fantastic, and yeah, really enjoyed all of my games. Really enjoyed both my decks. Ash Nico is like I think the most fun you can have playing runner. Like people say about Netrunner, it's like more fun when you play good decks, and I think that's especially true with runner side. Um, and it's like the best deck. um, I'm very grateful that they didn't ban any cards in that deck, but it is probably a mistake. Um, and yeah, and then yeah, I was really happy to play the R plus. I might try and do something with that shell, either with Beal or re-education, but like the tempo forward score really made the plan like feel much better than it would feel now. So I don't know. I don't know if it's still the deck. Um, but I had a huge amount of fun playing both of them. And I will continue to play Ash Nico, and I will continue to hate every corp deck I try because it loses to someone else in EA Sports playing Ash Nico. But yeah, no. That's it for tournament report. I think I'm not going to play an American Continentals, um, and I think that means the next major tournament for me is EMEA, which I'll definitely do recap for. And I might try and get in a small tournament for them because they're really fun as well. But yeah, so takeaways from the day: play Ash Nico. Maybe don't play MBN, but definitely get the old cards out and play Pedro Player. And yeah, if you're going to do online tournaments, do them in person because in person Netrunner is really fun, and that's what these videos are supposed to be about. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much.